Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hello. If you're returning, welcome back. Thank you so much for sticking around. I really appreciate it. I have had to film this intro like 3 times because I'm an idiot. Anyways, today, when I was thinking about my content for the next month or so, I was like, what can we film? What should we do? And then I was like, Megan, you have a whole folder on your computer of fat activist TikToks that you haven't gotten to talk about yet, and you also haven't checked up on them like in present day in a while. So I figured what better time than the present than to do that. So today we're doing a classic reaction video. But before we get into that, I want to thank today's video sponsor, Dipsea. Now I am so excited to be working with Dipsea because I've used their service before, and I really think it is super unique in the sexual wellness realm of stuff. Dipsea is an app that's designed for women by women, and it is all sexy audio stories to turn you on and also empower you in and out of the bedroom. And Dipsea is truly like where stories go to meet sexual wellness. Along with the catalog of 500 plus stories that's constantly growing, Dipsea members also receive access to wellness sessions so you can learn how to care for and explore yourself. They also offer less explicit bedtime stories and soundscapes and written stories. And they also have these really cool things that are called sleepovers, which are basically their audio, and they are Dipsea characters that are just hanging out with you in your ears, saying goodnight, and they stay with you while they like grade papers or play guitar in the back, and it's all just to help you feel comfortable and cozy and to help you fall asleep. The thing that I love about Dipsea as it pertains to like the erotica and the sexual wellness aspect of it is just how diverse it is. They offer so many different kinds of voices and stories, and so you are sure to find something that you want to listen to. And like I said, they're also releasing new content like every week, so you'll have something new every single week to explore. And I think that Dipsea is also a really great option for people who may be new to like sexual wellness or erotica, or may just be wanting to start exploring different sides of their sexuality and what they like and what they don't like, because I think that audio is a lot less intimidating and jarring than like visual can be. And so I think it's great for newbies and people who already know exactly what they like all at the same time. So let Dipsea be your go-to place for your me time, for exploring your fantasies, and to even heat things up with a partner if you feel like it. Viewers, Dipsea is offering an extended 30-day free trial at the link in my description box below, which is dipseastories.com/MeganAnn. That is DIPSEA stories.com/MeganAnn, which is MEGANANNE. And yeah, so that is a 30 days of full access when you go to dipseastories.com/MeganAnn. So that link, which is again dipseastories.com/MeganAnn, will be linked down below if you want to go give it a whirl. Thank you so much to Dipsea for sponsoring today's video, and thank you so much to you guys for constantly interacting with my content so that brands like Dipsea want to keep working with me. I really do think Dipsea is something special. So be sure to go check it out if you're interested. Thank you so much, and let's get back into the video. Okay. I have scooched over, I have put my overpriced headphones on, and I think that means that I'm ready to start reacting. Yeah, I haven't done a video like just like this in a very long time, so this feels a little foreign, but I do think my setup is very cute compared to the last time I did it. I did put this compilation together like pretty late last night, so I don't fully remember everything that's in it, which could be fun. Okay, anyways.
Everyone should be a fat liberationist. It's really quite simple. Everyone in a society that has the system of fat phobia within it, which is most westernized or colonized areas, is going to be negatively impacted by fat phobia and anti-fat bias. Depending on how small or large you are, the fat phobia and anti-fatness will affect you in different ways and will have different material realities. But no matter your size, fat liberation benefits you. Imagine what it would be like if we were all liberated from the idea that our bodies have to be smaller or look a certain way in order for us to live our best lives. Imagine if everybody could wear what they wanted to wear without having to worry whether or not they'll be able to find it in a store near them or not. Imagine spending your time worrying about anything other than your body.
So I wanted to put this one in here because, like, first off, this person always has really cool makeup in their TikToks, and I just want to point that out first. Their makeup is always really, really cool. Anyways, I wanted to put this in here because I do think that I can understand, like, I do understand, like, where they're coming from with this point. I think that for anybody of any size, whatever, I do think that a world where, like, people were not so hyper fixated on what they look like or their body or whatever, I do think that would be a much more peaceful world. I have talked about something kind of like this with Kayla Shea in an interview that we did a couple of months ago, where we talked about, like, do we think that as a society we'd ever reach the idea of, like, body neutrality? And, like, honestly, I really don't think we will. And, like, I like trying to be as optimistic as possible when it comes to stuff, but, like, with that, I really just don't think that we will get there, because I think that people's shapes, sizes, I think people's physical beings have been such a point of contention for humans for since the dawn of time, you know. And I know I probably didn't word that the best, but you know what I mean? Like, I really don't think that we'd ever get to a point where that just didn't matter anymore. And I also think that the physical, like, appearance aspect aside, when they're talking about, like, not worrying about your body, if you're going into this conversation with the fat activist lens, like, they talk about, or with the fat activist context, they talk a lot about how, like, your health and your body size aren't correlated and all of that kind of stuff, which, like, is true up to a point, right? Or can be true up to a point. But, like, if I'm gaining weight or losing weight or whatever, and I am starting to feel the effects of that, like, that's something that I do want to worry about, you know? And so, like, that's something that I do want to take to a doctor if I can, or it's just something I do want to worry about. And so, like, I think living in, like, blissful ignorance surrounding your body also is probably not the way to go. I know for a fact that it's not, because I've been there, because there's a lack of, like, caring for yourself there also if you're not worrying about that. So I think that's also, like, the flip side of that argument. I wanted to include this as well because I think that this is a really good example of, like, how activists in general, but, like, fat activists, just from what I've seen, use very broad statements that, like, a lot of people can empathize with and can understand to get people in to their messaging and their rhetoric. And then, like, then when you start going further and further down the rabbit hole, that's when you start seeing, like, some of the more unhinged problematic takes that I talk about on my channel, right? And so I think this was just a really good example of a video like that, and so I wanted to include it in here. But let's go on to the next one. So this says thin person, and this is what they're saying thin people say.
Eating disorders are just so awful. Like, they literally ruin my life. Like, they control every aspect of my life. Like, they are literally so awful. I wouldn't wish them on my worst enemy.
Yeah. And this is the fat person coming in. This is hypothetical.
I know what you mean. I have an eating disorder too. Bitch, where? Excuse me? Honestly, it's good that you have an eating disorder. It'll help you lose all that weight so you can be healthy.
So I just put this because it's just so asinine. Like, I'm sure people have said that. Like, I'm sure there has been a person or many that have said things like that. But, like, I genuinely feel like those people are so few and far between. This is just so asinine. And I think, for me, a big issue that I've always had with the fat acceptance movement and things that are hashtagged fat liberation on TikTok is, like, the fear mongering that comes with some of that content. And, like, that comes from both sides of like, it comes from everywhere. Like, every kind of niche on the internet has some level of fear mongering in it. And I get that. When it comes to something that's so delicate, such as someone's body image or how they portray themselves or how they perceive themselves, I think thinking that nobody's going to take it, putting a message out there that nobody takes fat people seriously about EDs, which I do understand, and I do understand where that point comes from, because I really do think that that is an issue. I think more people associate like Anna with EDs and that kind of stuff. Putting it out there that like you're not going to be taken seriously as a fat person with an ED, I think is something to talk about. But I also think that it should be talked about in a more productive way. And like, when people don't take you seriously, what can you do? How can you educate them, even though it's not really your job to do that? But like, if you have to, what can you do? Because like, just putting it out there that people are going to be assholes to you if you talk to them about having an ED and you're a fat person, to me, comes off as fear-mongering. And given that a lot of the audience, at least from my knowledge of fat activists and fat liberation people on especially TikTok, are really young people, that's scary. Because like, if they're already struggling mentally, having people come online and tell them like, hey, people think this about you because you're fat. People think this negative thing and this negative thing and this negative thing about you because you're fat, is not going to help them in their mental struggles at all. And I think that kind of encapsulates a lot of the issues I have with fat activists overall, is just the fear mongering and the fact that they come online and like plant kind of thoughts or things that arguably maybe probably never even happened in their audience's brain. I think that's really damaging and harmful. And that's like one of my main issues that I take with this whole sphere of the internet. Anyways, on to the next one.
So many body positive advocates are now posting about intentional weight loss. And honestly, this should be a huge red flag to us. This is why the difference between body positivity and fat liberation is so incredibly important. And in addition, when you build an entire platform off of being body positive and it's like, your body's perfect the way it is, it doesn't need to change, yada, yada, yada. And then now you're posting videos like, why I'm on Wegovy, why I'm on Ozempic. That goes against everything you built your platform on, shockingly. And also, can't you do those things but silently, like to yourself and not super out loud online? Just a question. Just thinking here.
Okay, so this one is like, is about the tale as old as time, right? Like, the body positive or fat activist person who has made their entire brand off of fat activism, body positivity, all that kind of stuff, now coming on and saying, hey, I'm losing weight, I'm on Wegovy, I'm on Ozempic, I'm having weight loss surgery, etc., etc., etc. And then the fat activist, fat liberation side of the sphere, like, all blowing up at the same time if somebody does that. We saw it with Gabriella Lascano, now kind of more or less with glitter and lasers a little bit, but I think the way she approached it is a lot gentler than Gabriella did, and I think Gabriella's approach was better, in my opinion. But I think this is a really interesting conversation because we've had it a million times, and one thing that just doesn't exist online is nuance, right? I think that's pretty obvious. And I also think another thing that doesn't exist online is the fact that people can change their mind about stuff. Like, let's normalize changing our minds about stuff, or learning more about stuff and changing our opinions in our mind after learning about it. Like, I think that is, it's one of the coolest things about being human and getting older, is like learning stuff and changing your worldview if it better fits how you feel about yourself. You know what I mean? And so I think that there's this idea that anybody who comes online and talks about body positivity, fat liberation, all that kind of stuff, like, can't change their mind. But also off of that, I think there's an idea that like body positivity, fat activists, whatever, like, can't, or just people in general, not even just online influencers, just people in general. There's this idea that people in general can't love their body no matter what, the way it is and whatever, while also maybe wanting to lose weight for whatever reason. For those of you who don't know, here, I had weight loss surgery 5 years ago. I used to be over 300 pounds. Like, it was a whole thing. Anyways, and I used to be very much in the fat activist realm of the internet. I've never understood the concept of how people in this realm of the internet think that losing weight intentionally is like a form of self-hatred, because honestly, like, yeah, I think it does take wake-up calls, like with things that are going negatively in your life, maybe to make you have that wake up call to be like, hey, I need to change something. But ultimately, I think that losing weight should be out of a place of self-love and like a love of your life, because if you're doing it as a form of punishment, that's like a whole thing that that I personally think should be like unpacked in therapy and all of that kind of stuff. But I do think that ultimately it should be a big body positive act for you. And so like I am starting, hopefully, with a bariatric clinic again in the new year. I'm starting with a dietitian first, and then I'm hopefully getting back into a bariatric clinic again, because I love my life. Like, I love my life the way it is now. I love where I'm at in my life, like, and I want to keep expanding upon it the best that I can. And I feel like I'm going in the wrong direction, and I need help again. So that's what I'm doing. But for me, weight loss, getting involved with the bariatric clinic again, and like really intentionally losing weight again, I really think that is a big act of self-love, because I don't like the way in which my body is going right now and how I'm feeling, most importantly. I want to live my life the best I can and to the fullest extent that I can, and to do that, for me, I feel like I need to start losing weight again with the help of medical professionals, whatever that may look like. I have no huge plans for next year yet, like, don't get too excited. I'm just starting with a dietitian at a bariatric program. This narrative that fat activists spread about intentional weight loss being like not loving yourself or being out of a place of self-hatred is like very dangerous, and I've talked about that a lot, but I just think it's interesting how like they think that these two things, like loving yourself and wanting to lose weight, are like mutually exclusive when they're not. I do think that's like a bit of personality development, character development that like may never happen, but I think once you get to it, it's a lot more peaceful of a life to live, to be honest, when you kind of learn to separate your feelings towards yourself versus like if you need to lose weight or not. That is something I'm still learning how to do, but I feel like I'm getting better at it and my life is better for it. To the point of this person saying, can you just not talk about it? The fact of the matter is no, they can't not just talk about it, because we've seen it like so many times. Like a fat influencer or a plus size influencer will start losing weight and people will just start shitting on them, even if they're not talking about what they've been doing. Because I think it sucks that like as influencers and as people, as public figures on the internet, like we do owe our audiences like an explanation, especially if it's something regarding something that we talk about so often. Like for body positive influencers, it's like their body and body image and like the size of their body and stuff like that. Like I think if things like that are going to start changing, I do think that influencers owe their audience an explanation. And that's why like when I start with a clinic again in the new year, like I will be honest about it and I will talk about it. Like I said, I don't know what that's going to look like for me next year, but like I'm going to update if it's updatable, like if it's update worthy, you know? And so like, because I do feel like I owe my audience an explanation with that. And it's also just something I want to talk about. But I do think, especially when it comes to like body positive fat content creators, if they're going to start losing weight, like they need to be honest about it. People are going to clock them if they're not. And also it's just going to make them seem really disingenuous to their audience at that point. I think we do kind of see that with Anna from Glitter and Lasers right now, with the way she's been approaching her weight loss on, I'm assuming like Ozempic or Wegovy or whatever. I think it's starting to come off, or has always come off, really disingenuous. And so yeah, I do think there is a level of transparency there that influencers and content creators owe their audiences when it comes to stuff like that. Anyways, on to the next.
Fellow fat people, what's something that you do that you're pretty sure really pisses off thin people?
Aside from the obvious existing while fat without hating myself, that really pisses people off for some reason. I'm one of those people that spends the majority of my life just walking around half naked in lingerie. I'm not wearing clothes unless I absolutely have to, you know what I mean? And so I get a lot of comments that are like, how are you so confident? Oh my god, you are so confident. And I know they mean it as like a compliment, I think, but it's just like, why wouldn't I be confident? So I started playing dumb and asking them that, going, wait, why does that make me confident? Everyone else is wearing the same kind of thing. Everyone else, why am I confident? And they kind of shit themselves because they're like, oh shit, oh, gotta admit this was fat phobia, whoops. But
I've been seeing a lot of talk about this kind. I know this is an older TikTok, but when I went and like looked at fat activist and fat liberation TikTok yesterday, I did notice that this is a very big conversation happening over there right now about like calling fat people like confident or complimenting fat people for their confidence. There's also a very interesting discourse surrounding the word flattering happening right now also, which I might make a whole video on because I think it's really interesting, because I think policing how people talk about stuff is very odd. Anyways, I have always found this point of conversation very interesting because like I really don't think when anybody calls particularly a fat person confident or like asks them how they're so confident, I really truly, and this could just be ignorance on my part, I really just truly don't believe that it's everything to do with the person's weight. Like, I give people so many props regardless of their body size for at least coming across and putting it on, and even if they don't fully feel confident in their body, like faking so well that they do. I admire people so much who are able to do that because like that is something, I mean, body image is something that I am working on. I have been working on. I will probably stay working on, like in therapy and all of that. And so when I see someone who is just so able to be completely unabashedly themselves, even if that is walking, like not wearing clothes often or whatever, I have so much respect for them. And like, I think it's so cool to see. And so like, I do genuinely want to know like where the hell they get that confidence from. Like, how did they grow that amount of confidence if they needed to in the first place? Like, it's never because of how they look. It's, for me, it's how they do it and like how they were able to get to that point in their brains, because like feeling that confident in yourself is just something I don't feel often, to be honest. Like, I feel confident in myself, like in my abilities to like do stuff and everything, but like it comes to like body image and stuff, that is a big thing that I struggle with. And so like anything, if you can just be unabashedly yourself, I have so much respect for that. And like, so I think it's really interesting to see fat activists be like, oh, they're complimenting my confidence, which is fat phobic. That's so weird to me. I've had people come up and say that to me. And I'm like taken aback by it. I'm like, thank you. People say that to me. Like, I don't take it as like, oh, you're so confident because you're a fat person, or like for your fat like, I've never gotten that vibe from people who compliment me saying that I'm confident or they admire my confidence or whatever. I've never gotten that vibe. And so I just think that this is maybe a little bit of projection from the people who talk about it, just not having a lot of self-confidence themselves. Because like for me, I'm not the most confident person all the time. I am willing to admit that. Like I said, body image and me, we're constantly just at odds with each other. So when someone compliments me and especially my confidence or like how I carry myself or present myself, that's a big, that makes my whole week, you know, like, because it's something I'm working on. For somebody to like see that in me is like a huge compliment. And so I think maybe this is a way of deflecting like personal, like internal things that these people may be going through. I don't know, but I just think twisting a compliment, like a genuine compliment, and saying that the person giving it to you is fat phobic is fucking bonkers to me. Anyways, on to the next one.
Aubrey, I'm all for body positivity, but I think that your body positivity is toxic. I mean, you're telling people to accept themselves as they are, even if they're unhealthy. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. And that's not toxic body positivity. That's what body positivity or body acceptance or body liberation is. If your body positivity or body acceptance is conditional on people being healthy or people's bodies looking the way that you think their bodies should look, that's not body positivity. And no, nobody in this community that I've ever met has said that if somebody has some kind of illness that needs treatment, that those people should not pursue those avenues. But rather, we should decentralize the importance of health, because the reality is that some people will never be healthy, but those people still deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. If you disagree, this community might not be right for you, and that's okay.
This was one that I put in here that I think is a really good example of like the intro videos, right? To like get people in and be like, yeah, obviously, like, I don't see people being worth any more or less based on like their health, because that's an asshole move. Because like she said, like some people will just never be like healthy. When I think of that, I think like people with an irreversible health issues, right? Whereas like being fat is very much for most people like a reversible health issue. But I think that, again, this is just a really good example of like the gotcha video, like the intro videos to fat acceptance, because like everybody's gonna agree with that statement. I feel like most people, maybe not everybody, most people are gonna agree with that statement. I think it's really interesting though, because like this video is so vague. You wouldn't know that, oh, if you were a thin person trying to like talk about this or trying to get into the body positivity, you would be out of there. You would not be allowed, because you are not marginalized enough. Because like this same person will turn around and be like, oh, you're thin, you're not marginalized, you don't belong here. We've seen it time and time again. And so, yeah, I just thought this one was like very interesting for that reason. So this last one that I have in here, I'm just not going to play because I think there's music in the background, but it's saying you don't find any fat people attractive / would never date a fat person is not a preference, it's fat phobia. And I don't know if I've ever explicitly touched on this topic. I don't know if I've ever touched on this topic fully on my channel. I've talked about it in interviews and stuff like that. I just think this conversation around preferences and fat phobia and people not wanting to date fat people, the human attraction and the way the brain works when it comes to how we are attracted to people and what makes us attracted to certain people and not attracted to other people is so complex. Like, there's still studies being done on being gay, like that, and that's been in the social conversation forever. I just think attraction and stuff like that is just such a complex thing to talk about. And like, do I think that there could be fat phobia rooted in someone saying like, oh, I don't want to date a fat person, oh, I could never date a fat person? Yes, but I think it depends on the context of that. And like, if it's just someone being hateful, like if you're hateful with your preferences, that's where the issue is. But like, if you're genuinely just like, hey, I'm not attracted to fat people, or I'm not attracted to you for XYZ reasons, like, that's okay, you know? Like, I don't see how we can get mad at everybody who doesn't want to date a fat person or just like hasn't dated fat people or whatever. On the flip side of that, do I think saying you would never date someone for XYZ purposes could be kind of closed-minded? It could be closing yourself off to like cool opportunities, sure, but like if that's a boundary, that's a boundary, and like people are allowed to set their boundaries or just have preferences, you know? Like, I was always like, when I was at my biggest, I knew that I wasn't everybody's cup of tea. Like, I knew that because of my size and because of, quite frankly, like the fat phobia that does and can exist in the world, that like some people wouldn't want to date me. But I think for a long time I did view it as fat phobia, and it took me a long time to realize like, just some people aren't attracted to everybody. Like, and I think And for whatever reason, someone wouldn't be attracted to me. And you know what? If someone's not attracted to me, then they're not the person for me. I think there needs to be a bigger conversation of like why fat activists and stuff, like fat activists and people in this realm of the internet want so badly to be desired by people. And I think that's a very, very big conversation, because there's so many other valuable human interactions that happen in your life than just like somebody wanted to fuck you. You know what I mean? Like it's hard for me to talk about because on one hand I can kind of understand where they're coming from, but on the other hand, from someone who is gay, like is attracted to women, men, and like everybody in between really much. I identify as pansexual. Like, I don't know how to explain how my brain or why my brain is that way. You know what I mean? I have preferences, and I don't know how to explain why I have preferences aesthetically, because they're just there. Like, they're just there. And obviously I'm talking in this whole conversation, I'm talking about like consenting adults, you know what I mean? My preferences are my preferences, and my attraction, the things I'm attracted to are just the things I'm attracted to. And like, am I finding that I'm attracted to more different things than I ever thought I was before? Yeah, but that's just being a human. And so, but I think that this conversation surrounding fat phobia and dating preferences could be a very interesting one for a later video, because like I really just, and having been there and like having thought that because of fat phobia that people were fat phobic because they weren't attracted to me, when like the same amount of people pretty much weren't attracted to me when I was at my absolute lowest weight, which was like a very average weight. I think the topic of why people, specifically people who are very loud about it in the fat activist movement, want so badly to convince people to be attracted to them is just, it's such an interesting conversation. I just see this conversation over and over and over again, and I just think as people, and specifically women and femme-presenting people, because that is who is the vast majority of the fat acceptance movement, I think we deserve better than trying to convince somebody to be attracted to us, you know? And I really just think finding peace with, if this person's not attracted to me, then they're not the person for me, is really, it's a really cool thing to finally come to terms with as a person. But yeah, that's all I have to say about that. I really don't know if I did anything there, but it might be a topic for another video, because I do have a lot of thoughts about it, and I think it's something that I should maybe type out and flesh out a little bit more. I just think that inherently preferences aren't fat phobic. Do I think people can be hateful assholes with their preferences and then be fat phobic and just awful to people because they're fat? Absolutely. But do I think inherently preferences are fat phobic? No, because what people like is just what people like. Anyways, that's it for this video. Thank you so much to Dipsea for sponsoring today's video, and be sure to check the link in my description. And if you're just listening, that link is dipseastories.com/MeganAnn. That is DIPSEA stories.com/MeganAnn, which is MEGANANNE. And yes, thank you so much to Dipsea for sponsoring today's video. Thank you so much for watching today's video. Remember to be kind to yourself, be kind to others, drink your water, take your meds, and I will see you in the next one. Okay, bye.